Hi guys. So I think with everything that's going on in the world, I think it's been on a lot of people's minds, and it's definitely been on my mind, that there is potential for something to escalate a little bit further. Now, hopefully it doesn't. Obviously it's, still on the less likely side. But I'm someone who likes to be prepared in every scenario. So anything I worry about, I want to prepare for. So I thought I would make this video in case it was useful to anyone, for sort of things that I'm doing to financially prepare in the event that a war breaks out. Now, all of the things that I'm doing aren't really sort of just focused on being good for me only in the event of a war breaking out, because all of these are pretty good things to do financially anyway, or at least sort of most of them would be things I would want to do. Some of them are more geared towards just that situation, but the majority are good anyway. So take from this video what you will, but I just thought it would be good to share. So I'm going to kick off with the really, really obvious one that is a broken record, but let's get it out of the way before we go into the more interesting ones. And that is to have an emergency fund, because having an emergency fund is key in any emergency situation. So having that financial buffer is really, really important. So depending on your own individual circumstances, have a think about how much of a financial buffer you need to have. And perhaps if you are, more in debt or something like that, then you don't want to build too much of a cash emergency fund, because you'd want to put any surplus money into your debt. But actually, even if you have debt, having some sort of emergency fund is good for your peace of mind and in case you need it. Okay, so number 2 on my list is actually buying things like gold or silver. So buying precious metals or sort of valuable items, but specifically gold and silver, because those are things that first of all hedge against market fluctuations. So generally in times of economical turmoil, if you want to call it that, when the stock markets crash, gold tends to either keep its value or go up. So the first thing is it's that hedge against the rest of your portfolio. But actually the second part is, if you ever needed to trade it for anything, whether it's money or goods or something like that, then it may come in handy at that point. So obviously a couple of things to bear in mind here. The first is that I would be buying smaller things rather than bigger things. Obviously, if you can afford the bigger slices of gold, if you will. But actually it's a lot easier to trade in or trade a smaller coin, for example, than it is a bigger one that's worth more. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, where are you going to keep it? Because you can't just keep gold lying around your house, right? So have a think whether you have a safe place to keep something like that if you are going to invest in it. So whether that means buying a safe for your house so that if anyone broke in, they wouldn't be able to steal it, or whether you can keep it somewhere else, like in a bank or wherever. So just something to think about. The next thing on my list is actually buying other currencies. And I don't mean investing in other currencies through brokers. I mean actually physically buying actual cash in other currencies. So this is in case, obviously it depends where in the world you are, but should your own currency suddenly either collapse or have hyperinflation, because that's happened in events, in war events in the past. So you've got hyperinflation, you've got falling currency, or just in the event that you have to go to another country to be safer, you'll be far less stressed if you have some of that currency with you. Now, once again, I'm not going to be buying huge amounts and just having random currencies lying around, but sort of having a think strategically which currencies may be good to buy. And from a little bit of research that I did, the US dollar obviously tends to be the safest currency to invest in because it tends to perform the best in such events. I believe in the 2008-2009 financial crisis, it was actually the US dollar that did best. This was also the case when Russia invaded Ukraine, so the US dollar actually strengthened and the Russian currency fell. So something to think about. It's just good, I think, to have perhaps some dollars, perhaps some pounds, perhaps some euros or something like that, just in case. Okay. The next thing may not be too popular with people, but I'm going to mention it anyway. And that is investing in companies that produce weapons, because that is a big hedge in your portfolio against market turmoil if that happens. Now, obviously, this goes against a lot of people's ethics, and you have to think about sort of, are you okay with investing in companies like that? I, for a long time, refused to do it. I really didn't want to, and I was very against it ethically. But then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, actually, all the people at the top and all the rich people, they're profiting off of this anyway. And that, you know, wars and weapons production happen anyway, regardless of whether I invest in this company. And actually, if I can then use my money to make the world a better place, then I'm offsetting that. I don't know. Perhaps it's flawed logic, perhaps it's not, but you know, that's where I am at the moment, and I'm not gonna ever lie on this platform, so that's kind of where my head is at. So in the event that other companies sort of crash, investing in sort of companies like BAE, I think from my point of view, would be again a bit of a hedge against your other investments. My next point actually is very related to this, and it is just investing in defensive stocks. So generally in the events of sort of geographical, political, economic turmoil, there are certain sectors that tend to be quite stable. So like traditionally defensive stocks, if you will, and they are utilities, healthcare, consumer staples, and defense. So from my previous point. So if you do invest in the stock market, consider investing in those defensive stocks. Okay, next on my list is having a review of your insurance policies, because that is a financial topic. It's something that will affect you financially. Now, from what I know, the majority of insurance companies don't actually insure in the event of war when it comes to things like property. But, you know, have a think about your health insurance, your life insurance, your property insurance, just any insurance you have. Perhaps it's worth looking at all the different clauses in it and checking whether you're still happy with that coverage should anything happen, and seeing whether there are better options out there for you. The next thing on my list is actually buying other sort of real assets. So I'm talking things that won't really go to waste, but could prove quite valuable during such a time. So I'm talking medicine, alcohol, cigarettes, things like that. Anything that you can trade for other things or sell if there are sort of empty shelves or something like that, you know? So having a little bit of a buffer with stuff like that, I think, is quite financially savvy, because, you know, things like that don't tend to go off. Well, medicine does, but, you know, alcohol, cigarettes, that kind of stuff doesn't. Having a little bit of a stash somewhere, I think, is quite good for that. The next thing is paying down debt, because liquidity in times of economic uncertainty is priceless, because if interest rates go up, so whether it's your mortgage or consumer debt, whatever it is, but especially if it's a mortgage, if interest rates go up and up and up, you don't want to be put in a position where you might potentially lose your home because of that debt. So actually focusing on paying that down as much as possible is super, super important. And the final point is about general investing. So if you look at these charts that I found, historically, obviously, general disclaimer, past performance is not an indicator of future performance, but historically, investing in the S&P 500 at the start of a war turns out to be quite a good investment. As with any situation like that, markets tend to tumble when something starts. And if you have the money and the nerve to go through that, then actually, rather than pulling out of your investments, investing during such a time is actually potentially a very good decision. And the final thing I wanted to mention, that perhaps isn't necessarily a financial move in itself, but it links in with finances, is actually ensuring that you have copies of all your important documents, because how are you going to access your money, your pension, your insurance, your bank accounts, anything else, if you don't have the right documentation? So if you are suddenly having to leave your home or anything like that, then it's really important to have copies of all of those documents. So just going through organizing, whether it's printing or putting things in one place, in one folder that you can just grab, that's in a safe place, of course, is super important, because you don't want to be left with having made all of these plans, all of these good financial preparations, and then being put in a place where you can't even access them because you misplaced a document. Okay, those are all of the things that I came up with. If you have any other things that you think might be good, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm always interested in hearing that. Let me know what you think of what I said, and obviously just keep a cool head, because this isn't meant to be a video to scare you or make you think that I think anything is going to happen. I just think it's good to always sort of look ahead and hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.